Okay, so I'm here to explain what happens when you have Mars in the second house of your birth chart. What is Mars? Mars represents debts, loss, loans, brothers, male friends, energy, aggression, violence, fire. Um, those are just some of the major things that Mars represents that I can think of. It represents other things that is probably not really known for. What is the second house? The second house represents the family that you came from. It represents your speech and represents your own personal wealth and finances. So, what happens when you put Mars in the second house? When you have Mars in the second house, one thing that we see is that you are someone who might, have a very aggressive, assertive speech, a very aggressive and assertive way of communicating. And maybe the family that you come from can be a huge source of debt. You might end up losing a lot of your money due to your family. Like a crazy example, your family, your parents might put a bill in your name, and that just ruins your credit score. Or maybe you find yourself constantly have to bail your family out financially with Mars in the second house. And also, because Mars, from the Vedic astrology perspective, it aspects the fifth house. The fifth house is associated with gambling, and it aspects the ninth house because Mars' eighth aspect is on the ninth house from the second house. So it deals with education and long distance travel. Someone with Mars in the second house, they could be very vulnerable to losing a lot of money and gaining a lot of debt through education, through school. Because Mars aspects like I said, the fourth, seventh, and eighth house from itself. So looking at the ninth house, it can show that someone can spend a lot of money and get into a lot of debt trying to go to school or trying to learn and buy books, or they can lose a lot of money by traveling and flying out and stuff. They just prone to waste a lot of money on that stuff. The fifth house could represent your hobbies, your romance and fun and children and all that stuff, and gambling. So a person with Mars in the second house, they are very vulnerable to getting put into a lot of debt and losing a lot of money due to gambling due to that gambling and maybe having a lot of fun. And looking at the eighth house, because opposite the second house is the eighth house, that represents sex and death. Mars in the second house, the person might spend a lot of money, waste a lot of money on sexual pleasures, whether it be prostitutes or porn or sex toys. You might lose and spend a lot of money on those type of things. You might spend a lot of money on the things that you want to keep away from the family that you're from, because the eighth house, which is where Mars is looking at, deals with your in-laws and your spouse's family. And the eighth house deals with secrets. And the second house deals with your family. So Mars can end up spending a lot of money on things that they might want to keep secret and hidden from their family. And but also Mars isn't just all about loss and debts and all that stuff. Because Mars is a warrior. Mars is a soldier. Mars represents violence. And it doesn't just have to represent violence and fighting, like someone step on your shoe and you punch them. Mars can fight for maybe more noble things. Mars can fight in a more decent manner. So what is a more decent representation of Mars when it comes to fighting? This is like legal stuff. So someone with Mars in the second house, they might make gains through like going to court and they sue someone and they have a legal fight and then they win something. Or you get into a car accident and it's that driver's fault. You lose your car, but it's through that loss you end up gaining a newer car, a better car, because his insurance company took care of you. And then you're getting paid out and getting some physical therapy because you might have lied or whatever, said that you got injured during the car accident. So Mars in some cases can not only make you experience loss, but you can experience gains through your loss with Mars being in the second house potentially. But that's just about all I can see with Mars being in the second house. Um, like I said, Mars can give you a very authoritative and strong way of communicating and strong voice, and your family might be a source of financial debt and financial loss. But Mars can also potentially make you inclined to gain wealth through education because it looks at the ninth house with its eighth aspect. So you might be someone who might go to school and get educated to go get a profession, to go get a job, to make enough money to get yourself out of debt. Something like that. Um, Mars is a malefic planet, which means it's a planet with negative characteristics and qualities to it. And you won't see this trait with everybody who has Mars in the second house. It depends on what house is Mars the lord of. What house does Mars have ownership over? But Mars in the second house might maybe give you some speech impediment or whatever, potentially, with Mars being in the second house. But that's all I got to say when it comes to Mars being in the second house. Hope that gave you a better understanding of what happens when Mars goes into the second house in your birth chart.